G7 summit in Italy solves a lot of world problems. That's where they go and they try and work everything out. President Zelenskyy made a deal with Joe Biden. Joe Biden agreed to give him $50 billion over 10 years, essentially guaranteeing Ukraine bilateral security agreement and technically using this as a stopgap, basically to cover the time it takes for Ukraine to actually be processed, accepted into Nato, which is, as you know, something that Vladimir Putin is not happy about. So in order to make sure that Ukraine is going to be protected through this entire process and be able to defend itself against Russia and take the power of vetoing that defense out of the hands of the Republicans in Congress, Joe Biden guaranteed 10 years between the U.S. and Ukraine. Ukraine also solidified a deal with Japan, very similar, not only to get military aid, but also financial aid. In addition, there is $1.5 billion in aid. That includes $500 million of new funding for the energy assistance throughout Ukraine, $324 million from another thing that was already kind of in a blind allocation for whatever something comes up, is being redirected towards rebuilding the infrastructure in Ukraine that was destroyed during the firefights in the war and stuff like that. Now, a big part of this is $50 billion being leveraged against frozen assets of Russia from this invasion. Needless to say, all of this pisses Putin off very, very much. He does not want anything to do with that. He's saying any money that's taken from Russia is basically an act of war. He has threatened nuclear war against the United States. He's stepped up that rhetoric this morning, stating that giving Ukraine any money from Russian assets in any way, shape, or form is theft. It's stealing. Putin gave a final negotiation, a final offer of resolution, that Ukraine give up the four main territories that Russia has essentially taken over, that everyone pack up and leave and just say bye-bye to those four regions. They promise not to join NATO. They name Crimea as part of Russia. They restrict the military forces they are able to build. Ukraine must never develop a nuclear weapon. And that the United States has crossed the line that Vladimir Putin cannot go back on. This is his final offer and his final threat to the United States. Now, as this is going on, we have the Nazar submarine, which is the most powerful nuclear submarine in the USSR, yes, Russia's arsenal. That is less than 70 miles off the coast of Florida, along Cuba, on the island of Cuba, that are actually parked under highway overpasses. These are things that shouldn't be happening on a scheduled military exercise in the Caribbean, which is an annual thing that Russia goes down and does this every year. This particular time, with all these threats, it's not just a military exercise. It's establishing a nuclear presence right off of our shore. In response to this, Joe Biden has sent a fantastic display of nonstop surveillance and warnings of the Russian fleet and the Russian military personnel that's on the fleet, that we are watching everything they do. There is a line of anti-tank military missiles and air defense systems and everything else that are now lined up along our beaches all over Florida, basically. This is our checkmate. Anybody who thinks this is okay, anybody who thinks the ties directly from Russia to North Korea, to China, to all of Donald J. Trump's best buddies, anybody who doesn't see this as a coincidence, just a coincidence, They don't see past just a coincidence that all this is happening. They need to get their head examined in many, many ways. This is not something that just happens. This is something that's planned for a long time. So we need to pay attention. We need to watch the developments on this. We need to see how many times the Republican House bends over backwards to not punish anything having to do with Ukraine or Russia. They've already threatened the International Criminal Court for going after Benjamin Netanyahu for the attacks on Gaza. The Republicans are standing up across the board for genocide and dictators. They have stood up for not only Yahoo, but also Vladimir Putin nonstop. This is our country. This is the United States. We need to put America first, and we need to recognize we are on what could be the edge of a full-blown military conflict. Now, I'm not one to believe Simpsons episodes, but August isn't too far away. We need to pay attention. Just saying. Stay diligent, stay educated, be kind. Do not let your vote and your emotions dictate your actions. It's time for Americans to step up for America, not for their party, not for the bullshit Kool-Aid they've been drinking for the last 7, 8 years or whatever it has been, but start looking at our country first. That's what America first is supposed to mean. So do it.